Welcome to the Video Jungle Podcast. I am Artie Gold. This is Justin Andrews.
How's it going? It's actually more like Artie cold today. You got a little sniffle.
A little sniffy. I got a little congestion. I was helping my sons play this weekend. There was 40 kids, so I was bound to get something. It was,
woo! You signed up for a play, but really you signed up to get sick.
And the sad part was it was frozen too, so it was cold all day for 4 days straight. But I digress. We have a really good show coming up because we're talking to a friend of our company, another company, Nail, who works in our...
why I always say nailed it.
So, we went through a whole year of you going, nailed it.
Yeah, we went to their office, and I was like, I love saying nailed it, and it just solidified my willingness to say nailed it for basically anything.
Do you think everybody over at Nail, when you walk in, they know it's coming now? Here comes the nailed it guy.
I don't know. But no, Jess is someone that they hired to head up all things social at Nail. Actually, like a division of the company focused on social media.
Because Nail does outstanding graphical and advertisement type of work, right?
They're known for doing campaigns that stand out, are different, and get your attention, essentially. And he's sort of tasked with taking that mindset and applying it to all of these new forms of digital media that are moving constantly and are really hard to keep up with.
And this is Jess Bachman, and basically all day long he just scours the internet for new digital practices, new digital media. And the project we're going to talk about is pretty cool. I know you have some experience with the product that they did, but I actually, the platform that they used, I wouldn't have even thought maybe 3 times about using that platform to do digital advertisement or in any campaign, to tell you the truth.
It really made no sense. Yeah. And I had somebody that already says some experience. The product that we're talking about, they helped Woodchuck Cider tap in and find their old audience. And what I loved about this story that Jess shared was the starting place was a very conventional starting place. And it involved a video that was a very conventional video. And for those reasons, it did not work. And I love that we start this conversation with a video campaign that really didn't stand out. Because at the end of the day, the right solution for this campaign wasn't really heavy with video. There were video components that stuck out and were interesting, like their YouTube campaign, which you should stick around just to hear that story. But really, this is as much a conversation about choosing the right social media platforms to, as you like to say, go viral, right? That's your favorite word.
It's my favorite word. Let's go viral.
It's the Video Jungle Podcast. Find your fascinating.
To stay up to date on digital stuff, you can't read the blogs or read Twitter and hope it's going to come to you. You just need to try and experiment all the time personally, or within the agency. You can't wait for someone else to come up with the great thing because now they've done it and you haven't.
Today we're speaking with Jess Bachman, the Digital Strategy Director at Nail, an award-winning advertising agency comprised of creatives, strategists, makers, and geeks who help make companies interesting in exchange for a totally reasonable amount of money, or so it says on your website, Jess.
Yes, that's the plan. Happy to be here.
Welcome to the Video Jungle Podcast. And I know, Justin, you have known Jess for a little bit, and they do a lot of fascinating work around our area.
Yeah, I mean, in Rhode Island, there aren't a lot of ad agencies that do work that's recognized nationally, and Nail is one that, through the years, has always kind of put together a campaign that gets national attention, and they aren't afraid to challenge norms, do things different. I think, Jess, that's sort of your role there. You're captain of doing strange things.
Well, I mean, part of that is maybe that's my role, but also since I focus on digital and social, it changes all the time. I am tasked with coming up with different things just to even stay on top of what works.
When I talk to the digital people out there, that's one of the questions I always ask. It's, in video or film even, we try to do new things, but essentially it's always this. I mean, the process is about the same as in the 1960s when film was coming into its own. It's like we have an audio, we have a boom mic. Nothing's really changing. Digital, tomorrow could be completely different for you. And, whether it's Instagram or Snap or TikTok, you have to really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Or even the process, the equipment. I mean, we've shot some videos that went live in the afternoon. We shot it in the morning and then went live in the afternoon. So even the process, all sorts of things is changing.
So when you look at what Nail is building, historically some really big campaigns, and now you're running campaigns that are maybe look different than some of the historic campaigns that Nail has done. Talk to me about like when a client like Woodchuck Hard Cider comes to Nail and says, we want to compete against these massive brands that are invading our cider space.
Sure.
And we need eyeballs, we need attention. We've got great product. Woodchuck, I used to, wake up, have a few when I was in college with my
For
cereal.
breakfast?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like apple juice.
When you're drinking a hard cider in the morning, what cereal goes best with it?
It's more of a question of what cereal doesn't go
Okay,
best with
gotcha.
No, but that is a true. It's just funny because like Woodchuck, like to me and my friends, like I just remember drinking Woodchuck
That's
in
everyone's
college,
story, yeah.
and then never drinking it again.
Yeah. That's what happened because their market share got. I mean, Sam
Yeah.
Adams came into the bars and was like, "If you want Sam Adams, you have to carry Angry Orchard," and they just kicked Woodchuck out. So.
Yeah, and I don't ever get an Angry Orchard. It makes me angry just thinking about it. So talk to us about what that looks like for Nail to tackle a campaign like this one.
Well, Woodchuck is interesting because the story that you just heard or told, I hear that all the time. It's like I used to drink Woodchuck in college. Woodchuck is a cider brand. They used to have around 50% of the market, and then they went down to 2% of the market because Sam Adams just kicked them out of all the bars. So we needed awareness, but we knew that there were Woodchuck fans out there that could be activated in some way. And we knew that we could rally that community if we found the right platform to do it. Reddit is something we wanted to test and try, and Reddit is just full of all these passionate people. And when you type in like Woodchuck into Reddit, you find people talking about it. So we knew that they were there, and we knew that we could activate them in a particular way.
And how did you decide on Reddit? Because you might have been saying, maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's YouTube bumper ads, maybe it's a ton of video content, right? Like we're a video production company, but we always tell people like, do what is right, choose the right medium, and that's sort of what you really nailed with this campaign. So how did you stumble on Reddit as the solution, and how many different platforms did you consider?
Well, we considered them all, and we were actually on almost all of them. We were on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. YouTube was really well. It turned out really well, too. But with Reddit, the way we convinced the client is, one, it's just a cheap platform for CPMs. And that's why clients like it. And if we want to get like tens of millions of views, we have to be there. I mean, this was our first campaign on Reddit, so we demonstrated our expertise of our knowledge of the platform and how the ads have sort of evolved, so the client had a little bit more confidence in us. But it was really, we wanted to do like an open comments type of campaign, and we wanted to basically have sort of long-running conversations with Redditors.
One of the things that I'm really proud that we've done in the last couple of years on the Animus side is really picked up our pitch game, like how we pitch to clients, what our pitch looks like. Talk to me about, I know you said you want to do the safe pitch too because you want the client. What does it feel like when Reddit's working, you go back to them and say, here's what what was their reaction in a platform they may not even know about, right? I don't know if they're educated to know if you go to them and say, here, we're going to invest 75% of your money into this web platform. You don't know, but trust me, this is going to work. Like, what was that reaction? What does that feel like when you're doing that?
Well, that was great, and it certainly helps. I mean, every week we sent them like a huge deck full of the comments, and the comments were stuff that they had never seen before, stuff that we had never. The level of it was like, I saw your ad, and then I went out to the store and I bought the cider, and then here's a picture of me with the cider. It was like marketing porn, to see this type of stuff. So that certainly helped. And a lot of platforms, they'll either turn comments off or you don't have that level of comments. So that helps get more buy-in from the client. But again, you're not going to get buy-in without sales. And that was like one of the main drivers. And they saw those sales and they're like, keep doing what you're doing.
And were there like posts that you guys were responding to that you knew were walking that line that you're like, we got to respond and say this because it's just too funny and it's going to the Reddit community is going to like this. How much freedom did you guys have with the client to be very responsive?
We had sort of total freedom. No comment was pre-approved, anything like that. It was all real time. There were a few where they're like, can you try not to swear so much? Something like that.
The whole post was just a bunch of swears. Maybe
Right.
that's not a good strategy.
But I mean, Reddit, they want to see you respond. Like we had a client, or we had one of the ads was, it was like pink and it was like ladies night out. And the Reddit community hated that one. And that got posted to another subreddit called Pointlessly Gendered and was the top post there. And there was so much hate related to that. But you can't be like, I mean, our response was like, yeah, we up with this ad, we're sorry, we'll do better, and they appreciated that.
But the sales went up that month, and they were like, "Fine, just keep doing it."
Right.
Whatever.
We knew it was working from the very first ad. The headline was, "This is our first ad," and it was just some POP assets, and we just saw the comments, like the people came in there and be like, "Oh, I remember Woodchuck," that type of thing, and then we're also reaching new people, and when new people see that type of social proof, it's so much more effective. When they see other people be like, "Oh, that was my favorite brand," that type of thing. So we knew it was working for very early on. And then right around the second or third ad, we were like, this is working so well, we need to move money from Facebook and Instagram into Reddit.
And can you describe, like, I mean, we're talking ads, or we're talking physical ads, or we're talking like, just having a bunch of social media people.
Direct
making sure-
mail. Reddit direct mail.
Faxes where you're faxing. Like,
Reddit
what do these
fax.com.
ads look like? Or
I
feel
mean,
like?
that's the funny thing about Reddit is you don't think of Reddit as like this modern thing. It's kind of like a Web 2.0. It reminds you of like 1990s internet.
AOL,
It's not
IM.
like the fancy app in your head of like, Snapchat branding itself as a camera company essentially. So was it weird when you said, okay, yeah, we're diverting everything into Reddit because that is the platform that's working, and talk about how it was working.
It was weird because we spent the most amount of production producing this video. It was a very typical type of commercial. We shot it on a rooftop in New York City or whatever, and put it on Facebook and Instagram, and it didn't work that well.
Blasphemy. Blasphemy. But I do want to talk about that a lot more.
Sure.
Hey, Justin,
Yeah.
question. Can anybody find their fascinating?
100% of people can find their fascinating. Yes.
Is that a scientific fact?
The studies are in. We conducted a lot of research, spent way too much money determining that find your fascinating is a thing that humans can do.
And how many dentists approve of our Find Your Fascinating?
4 out of 6.
Forward. And what are the other two doing right now?
They're
basically not dentists anymore, Justin.
Right.
So they
I
don't
didn't
count.
know.
So
I
it's
didn't
really
know what
4
happened
out of
to
4
them.
dentists because they didn't understand the process, so they just didn't make it in this world. So if you want to make it in this world of creativity and finding your creative courage, you should go to findyourfascinating.com right now. We'll send Justin right into your office. We'll send our team into your office, and we will find your fascinating.
But not if you're a dentist.
But not if you're one of those other two dentists. They lost their chance.
Talk to us about the video that you guys made for this and what the thought was, and then what it felt like when it didn't work.
All right. Well, there's 2 videos. We made a video that's for YouTube that was entirely different and super successful. But the one we made for YouTube and Instagram, like, it was a very typical commercial. And I feel like clients, sometimes they just need to see that commercial. We could not go to them with a Reddit only idea and be like, we're going to try weird stuff. I mean, they wouldn't have been our client. So sometimes you have to go in with, this is typical. This is what you want.
It's
this
safe. People buy safe.
Right.
What about it was so typical that in your head you were like, it's too obvious. It feels like everyone else.
Well, it was like a sort of fake rooftop party, and
Sounds awesome.
yeah, I mean, it looked like an ad that you would see on TV. It was like a 30, whatever. And again, those don't work on social.
Someone grabbing a beer and then someone being like, "Here's a cider. It's more crisp and refreshing."
Don't forget
Was
super
that-
slow-mo.
Was that basically? Yeah. Was
Super
that sort of
slow-mo.
what the?
Well, it was like, I think it started with a video of someone like in a club, and it was like, oh, this is super lit, and then it zooms out, and that video is on their phone, and so someone's watching someone else at the club, and it's like, oh, I'd rather stay home with my Woodchuck cider,
In your face.
and then they grab a 6-pack and then go to people who are like laughing.
But I think it's funny that what worked on Reddit and the message that you said earlier was, when you think about who Woodchuck could really appeal to, it was that 50% market share that they own. And we had Narragansett on here a while back, and they had this huge market share a long, long time ago. They were the Red Sox sponsor. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you build a campaign that actually sparks the memories in the true fans versus building a campaign that just looks like an ad that Budweiser or Sam's would have created that isn't memorable.
Right. So, I mean, if we go to market with one video, we have one message. But if we go to market on Reddit, where we allow people to talk, that people, relaying their memories becomes sort of part of the ad, becomes a part of what everyone else sees. And it just becomes huge social proof when there's like these ads have hundreds and hundreds of comments that people say that they love it,
So I always talk about, obviously in business, ROI is the big thing. I talk about brand ROI a lot, which is, it's really hard. Like for what we do is, can I justify that this video is going to sell 1 million products? I hope so. But but you also have to build your brand. And that's kind of like what Woodchuck was going through. When you did the Reddit campaigns, did you start to see like more, I wouldn't say like merchandise being sold, more Woodchuck being sold? Or was it more, you just felt that kind of surge of influence happening?
Right. Well, I mean, with a lot of digital campaigns, the ROI can be tracked very easily, particularly if you buy off a site. You get the ROAS, return on ad spend, whatever. You can tell if you put $1 in, you'll get $2 out. With something that can only be bought in the liquor store, very difficult. So what we try and do is something that is so successful that it sort of jumps the air gap between online and the liquor store. And the reason why we knew it was successful is because they had their best sales month in 7 years, So it's very clearly that something is working here.
Were you the one buying all the cider, or were other people?
Yeah, me and
also?
the rest of the people at Nail.
That was the Nail budget for the month.
Budget there. No, so talk to us a little bit more about like the bones of a Reddit campaign, right? And what I'm interested in is, what would a video look like now, given that you basically kind of focus grouped an ad campaign.
You know
Reddit,
what the Reddit
right?
people are saying now, right? You know what the comments were.
Talk to us about how you put out ad one, and then you learn from the comments that are happening, and you guys were almost involved with creating this fan group. Talk to us about that and some comments that you remember getting in the Reddit forums.
Sure. I mean, we started the campaign. We wanted to do about 12 posts, and we started the campaign. We had 3 image assets that our designer had, and we started with those 3 assets. But after that, it became a weekly sort of like live show where we need to concept the campaign or the next ad on Monday, get it approved by the client on Wednesday. It goes in market Thursday to Sunday. And then we just repeat that all the time. And sometimes, getting the client communication was difficult. Sometimes I had to make an ad. I shot an ad in front of my yard on like a Thursday morning, and then, put that into market the same day. It was it was chaos. It was absolutely chaos. Super fun, really entertaining chaos all around. But
what's an example of like the ad that you shot in your yard? Like, why did you have to shoot in your yard?
Mowing his lawn with
did
a
you make?
cider.
Yeah, here I am.
So in Vermont, there are no billboards. So I had an idea to print out one of our POP assets and then tape 2 straws to it to make it look like a tiny billboard, and then just hold it up in front of my phone in a sort of wooded area and be like, oh, now there's a billboard.
And then you were sued by Vermont. That was great. You know what? We did a podcast last year. I was kind of messing around with the word I hate the most, which is viral, because clients will always kind of, I need a viral video. I need a viral this. What you're explaining is the chaos that happens behind is like, that's like viral in motion. You can't buy it. You made it.
Right.
And the other thing that you described is something I firmly believe in, is the way that the world is working with digital. It's going back once again to the broadcast kind of way. It's like you have to produce that. So you have to have a way to produce that. Did you have that all set in place, the infrastructure? Did you build it as you went? Did you learn a lot from that experience of what needs to happen from a team aspect?
Yeah, we learned a lot, and we didn't really have that infrastructure. And kudos goes out to Nikki, who is the account manager, just dealing with this accelerated process, trying to get the client who didn't even know Reddit very well to just say yes to things very quickly. Was challenging.
What kind of things did you need to put in place that you know now that you didn't know when you started?
One of the Reddit posts from Woodchuck was them explaining or thanking fans for helping them with the campaign, if I recall. Like, fans were giving suggestions, and then one of them was you guys explaining cost per 1,000 versus cost per click, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like, that just feels not like what Woodchuck would be. It's lifting the curtain of like what was happening with the campaign.
Right. I mean, we did a lot of sort of back-end testing on the Reddit platform, and we ended up, one of the ad units was a 12-minute long video of a still image. And we did that to get around some of the limitations on the Reddit platform. But then we had to explain to everyone why the hell we're doing this thing, because it's every ad got like scrutinized by thousands of people. So that became a thing. And over the campaign, there were like memes that developed within the campaign, and those got brought up. We used we sourced UGC for ads, pictures of people's dogs, of cats. We sourced headlines from the community as well.
So I'm interested in now, like, taking all of that and saying, if you could have gotten that money back from that initial video campaign that didn't really make sense, where would you have put it? And if you were to have redone that video, what did you learn through the Reddit forums that would have said, like, okay, this is probably what this should have been?
Yeah, did the Reddit comments, are they now going to influence direction moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, certainly moving forward, we're going to do more Reddit, but Reddit is not the totality of the customers that we want to reach. The whole point of Woodchuck is to drink it when you're staying home. So our idea with YouTube was to target people who are listening to music, over the weekend, those types of channels. And the ad we used was a YouTube pre-roll ad, which you can skip after 5 seconds. And it's basically, it looks like a very standard pour shot. There's an empty glass, it says Woodchuck, and it fills up with cider over the course of 4 seconds. At the 5-second mark, it cuts to a medium shot of the guy who did the pour in this closet, essentially, this like shop closet. And he looks so surprised that you like caught him off guard. And he's like, I thought you were going to skip this. And then it goes, and then he just kind of like ad-libs for another 2 minutes. And what surprises us is usually the view through on a skippable ad, like you can skip after 5. So usually it's like 6-7 seconds.
Yeah, you're just hovering on that skip button. Like,
you're waiting.
Please
I'm trying to get at 5.
hit
exactly.
that 5. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it has become a game for me. And we make video, which is terrible, but it's like, no, I want to watch the video I want to watch.
Exactly. So for this particular ad, the average view time across millions of views was 50 seconds.
That's crazy.
50 seconds. And that's the average. So whoever skipped like at 6, there's someone else that watched to the end,
And it's not your first time Nail has done a campaign like that, like playing with the bumper ad and breaking the fourth wall. Can you talk about, like, maybe there's no data on it, but why did that work? And then let's talk a little bit about the production of it.
Yeah, I mean, so we always talk about like tailoring the creative for the platform, but it's also tailoring it to the specific placement on the platform. So we knew that people were waiting to skip, and we played with that. And as soon as people are just like, they're zombified when they're going through videos. They're just waiting to skip. So as soon as you just break their expectation, as soon as you poke through, they'll give you some more time to try and understand what was going on. And particularly with this video, it took a long time to understand what was going on, because it was like, is this an ad? What just happened here? People spend a lot of time just viewing it. So that's generally what we try and do. And we look for opportunities to break people out of their expectations.
What's interesting too is, like, you want to be creative and bold and maybe take some chances. And on the other hand, with the digital world, you have stats, you have figures.
Yeah.
How do you balance like being creative and crazy, but at the same time you balancing that with the stats and figures you're able to bring into yourselves?
Well, I mean, we found that the crazier stuff does better with the stats, and it's important to create a feedback loop with the creatives, because me and my team, we're looking at the data all the time, but the creatives aren't. Like once it's in market, they're on to something else. So we try and create a feedback loop where, like, every month or every week, we're like, these are the stuff that's working best. Do more like that.
And do you find that your team now you have more influence on the creation, because you're able to walk in and say, listen, I know you're looking for a demographic between 18 and 25, but they all seem to like diapers. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, diapers will never work. Like, that's a bad example. I don't know.
Yeah, diaper flavored.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, we worked with the supply chain industry for a while, and they used to be just truck drivers. And then all of a sudden we go to a conference, and like the main supply chainer at Dunkin' Donuts was now the leader of their marketing campaign, because he knew the product. He knew what people were buying. He knew like everything that was coming off the shelf. So his voice became very important. Are you finding that to be kind of like a switch now in the marketing and advertising world?
Right. Well, yeah, certainly that type of data insights needs to be in the brief, for sure. But also, it's really helpful to have someone like me or someone in my team in the room when the concepting is happening. If you have creatives that know these platforms very well, it's a different story, but that's not a lot of the case at a lot of agencies. So having someone like me in the room to sort of shape or push back, or one of the things I'm constantly saying is, like, if you want, like our creators, they really want to tell a great story. I'm like, that's great. You can tell a great story. Please hook them in the first 2 seconds of that video, and then you can kind of tell whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's a weird world. I gave a talk on storytelling this year, and one of the things I talk about is like everyone talks about storytelling right now, and that's totally cool because some things should be stories, but some things should also just be ads. Mm-hmm. And ads to me are you can tell stories in an ad, but they can be very different. Ads can just be ads. Like the intent of an ad is someone needs to watch it and actually pay attention to it and remember you and hopefully do something that you want them to do.
But
they don't need
to be honest, though, when they
story.
stop listening to you, Justin, you just start paying them money.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're not listening? Here's some money.
Well, I mean, creatives, they often don't want to hear that they need to make ads. So the way I get around that is like, there's a funnel, and there's top of funnel stuff, and there's middle and bottom funnel stuff. And in the top of funnel, yes, you don't need to sell the product there. Just get people's attention, get people thinking about the brand. We're not going to do any selling. We're going to hit them again with some retargeting a little bit later. And by the time it gets down to the bottom of the funnel, it's like, please just talk about how the shoe is waterproof.
Well, it's campaign thinking, right? Like we as a video production company, we have clients reach out to us that just reach out to us in the siloed video, and we always say like, wait a minute, like what's the campaign structure?
Sure.
So as you're building this campaign, it sounds like it, especially in the social world, it's just very nimble. Mm-hmm. Like when do you even assign budgets? When do you say, okay, we should actually make a bigger production here, or hey, let's just take that X amount of dollars that we had set aside for that one video and let's make 50 videos or 50 assets, or just invest in our time typing up witty social comments. Like, how do you go about restructuring the campaign in this sort of nimble digital world?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about budgets, there's probably like 2,469 different factors that go into how we figure that out. Everything from like the client's margins to the type of person the client is, and it's very challenging. But absolutely, and a lot of times it's just the budget is what the budget is, and we have to work backwards, from that. But we will map out everything from like the expected click-through rate, how many impressions, that type of thing in different parts of the funnel, and end up with a number like we can spend 40,000 on top of funnel or that type of thing. So we try to get very prescriptive as long as everyone knows that these, I'm not an oracle, these numbers are just, they're going to move as soon as, the client stuff's in market.
But I'd have to imagine, maybe you guys, I know you guys talk offline a lot, but I have to imagine that you guys are like Reddit heroes. Reddit must love you guys for what you just did, because, I mean, I don't know anybody else doing this at that level at Reddit, right? Mm-hmm. You don't think of Reddit, how you use them, and they must be like, oh my God, who are you guys?
Yeah, they brought us down to New York to teach or show how we pulled off. They were doing this big summit down there, and they showed off their sales team like how we pulled this off. And the reason that Reddit loved this campaign so much is because it was like finally someone was using the platform in the way it was meant to be used. Because usually with advertisers, Reddit's like the cheap platform, cheap CPM. So you get these like mobile game makers just flooding it with garbage, and no one's really respecting the Redditors, the Reddit community. No one's doing anything with that, and that's their biggest asset. So finally someone was able to tap into that and really blow it out, and they just love seeing that.
Well, it's a weird thing because there's this quote around like expensive advertising works because it's expensive, right? So a brand like Apple, you could never see them leaning into the Reddit community. They'd be completely terrified about it. It's not safe.
Right.
Woodchuck, on the other hand, yes, it's not like a cheap game thing. It doesn't feel like one of those scammy advertisers. Right. It's a known entity. When you look at it in hindsight, it just makes sense. So how is the Reddit world, how's the sales team, how are they going to leverage the work you did to say, hey, we can go out and actually get more people to think this way?
Well, I mean, part of it is us being an evangelist and evangelize the Reddit community. We're also plans to like build our work into like a Reddit playbook as well. But I would actually push back and to say that Apple couldn't do stuff on Reddit. I mean, yes, there might be opportunities for it to blow up and go wrong. But if you are a non-genuine company, if you don't believe in what you do, if you're a scammy company, it's not going to work on Reddit. But if you have true values, and then people like that, I mean, there's a huge fan base of Apple all over the place. And that doesn't mean, people are just going to all over Apple on Reddit.
Yeah, they could put up their new $5,000 monitor and just eat it, but then say, but it is really good. In the world of video, right? Like, it is very standard to get that request for that first thing that Woodchuck asked for.
Mm-hmm.
But having gone through this, like, how should you think about just video in general as part of a campaign?
We absolutely almost request video for every client, for every campaign, even if their budget's like $5,000, because the video has the best way to do retargeting off of. You can't get middle of the funnel without video. You can target people off like percent watch, that type of thing. So we always, even if it's like, all right, we'll take a still image and we'll just do a slight zoom or animate it or whatever, we absolutely have to have video for every single campaign. So the level of video depends on like how much you want to put into the top funnel, storytelling, whatever. But absolutely, video is essential.
Super. So where can people find Nail, talk about some of the stuff Nail's doing? And I know you guys have your own podcast as well.
Yeah, so me and my team, we're at nail.social. That's sort of the website. We can see everything that's going on with us. We have a podcast called Nail Social Office Hours. Just Google it. You'll find it. It's on all the places.
What do you guys talk about? Cool things like Reddit?
No, they don't talk. They just talk about being social. The idea of being social.
Fantastic. So, Justin, I remember at the beginning, your intro, you said that you were fascinated by the fact that they had tried other videos, other platforms that just didn't work. And they didn't give up. They kept going, and they found the platform that worked. What's the lesson that companies should really think about when they're doing their social media?
Well, you know that it's a good episode when that it was the most successful campaign, sponsored campaign on Reddit. And they offered to fly him from Rhode Island to New York,
Really?
which is completely absurd because it's like a 3-hour drive. They
Private
offered to
jets.
fly him down there to talk about it because it was such a successful campaign on Reddit. But as much as that's interesting to me of just where to pivot dollars, I think in the video world, like the YouTube spot really stands out to me as something that is just a completely different way of thinking about the context of the ad. What did you think about sort of their 6-second bumper ad and their way of designing it?
So here's the thing I always used to say when we were doing standard broadcast. 30-second ads were tough to write. But then all of a sudden, television got into 15-second ads. And 15-second ads were really tough to write because everybody wanted all the information in 15 seconds, which is why you got people like me talking as fast as you can.
1 second ad.
Let's do this. Nowadays, I think my favorite company that's doing it is Geico, where they have these, like, in 3 seconds, they catch your attention. They have those, remember the ones where people would freeze? You'd be like, what's going to happen? Like,
Right.
They made you watch. I thought that what they did was brilliant. They really got your attention and made you want to figure out what was next. They held people's attention for 50 seconds after that
It's crazy.
5-second bump or
Right,
whatever
like
that was
they
going to
only
be.
have to watch. They can press skip. Everyone
Right.
wants to press skip, but they designed a campaign where people sat around for 50 seconds, just like awkwardly watching this thing while Woodchuck's branding is right there front and center.
And we talk a lot about this on our own pre-creative meetings. I know we bring it up a lot. We always say, hey, we want to do comedy or we want to do funny in our commercials or any of our pieces. But we always say, how many times have you actually laughed at a commercial, right? I think maybe in the last
TV
2 years,
funny.
one time I've laughed. This is interesting because this proves that one of the things we've learned is you got to cast correctly. You have to have a strong script that's going to hold somebody's attention. And I think what Jess said too, really getting to your audience. He didn't care about anybody else.
If you need, if you're trying to beat Bud Light, right, which they are, they're trying to beat just this massive brand. You don't beat them on the battlefield that they've created and they own. You beat them on a completely different battlefield with completely different ideas.
Just move
And
to
I
another
think
planet.
The ideas that they presented here, the fact that they helped Woodchuck have their best sales in 7 years is completely insane. And they did it through kind of bold, risky ideas. So last thought is just, why do you think people should pitch bolder ideas, and why do you think clients should actually participate in those bold, scary ideas? We
always talk about creative courage. You want to have that creativity, but you need to have courage to do creativity. Because if you do what everybody else is doing, you're just not gonna break through. What's nice about what Jess did was he was able to take like the stats and the demographics and everything that was happening on Reddit and put a good pitch together. Probably didn't even have to be that visual because he was just saying, "Hey, I got 50 people talking about Woodchuck. This is where we want to be."
Yeah.
And I think that's a great lesson too.
I mean, when you think about what Jess's message was here, and what I think people should take out of this episode is a campaign might start in one space, right? The safe video concept. But if you have a creative team working with you that's nimble, you shouldn't be afraid to move the campaign where it needs to go and try entirely new platforms. And I think we're advocates for that, right? Like if we're working with an account, yes, we're a video production team, but ultimately like that account should just do the right thing and make the right choice.
And I always tell clients, like, we're not in the 60s, 70s, or 80s right now where you need to spend $1 million and lock yourself into a campaign. With good budgeting, you can be creative and you can also be nimble, right? You can be able, if something's not working, then you can kind of put it to the side and start the next one.
I remember a few years ago we met with a client that their way of budgeting was to take their historic budgets and just apply it to the next year. So they said, well, last year we did 20% in paper. We're doing 20% again.
Right.
Which is baffling because they had a 0% budget for video the previous year. So how do you flash that forward, right? You have to be very nimble, not only on an annual basis, but on a campaign basis to say, hey, we need to move money to where it's actually generating results.
We were joking around at the beginning of that podcast. By the time we left the podcast, there's probably one other new digital medium out there that is going to change the way we do the next campaign.
Yeah.
And I think every company should think about that.
And I think it's not just what we walked away with. It's important to know that Jess was an in-studio guest, and he walked out of here with his very own copy, VHS copy of Alien.
Yes, we got him Aliens.
And I think.
But my biggest question to you,
says a lot.
My biggest question to you is, did you or did you not really Jones for a woodchuck after he left?
I had 4 of them. I actually considered going to the liquor store and picking up a woodchuck, like a 6-pack for the episode, but it was like 10 a.m. and I didn't want him to have a bad impression.
According to you, that's when you have your best woodchuck.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's basically apple juice for adults.
That's great.
In college.
This has been the Video Jungle Podcast. Find your fascinating, a product of Animus Studios